So agents, right? They need to be able to operate under an identity, and we're at a point where we're scared about turning agents open because they can do operations, right? They have access to tools, so they can go do things. And you tie them into different platforms, and you have additional risks now, right? It's not just a chatbot that's potentially displaying some confidential or finding other information. Right now, it's actually doing actions. That can be scary. So, but that is really no different than a human identity, right? Humans make mistakes all the time. We're able to somehow navigate that realm and feel fairly confident in our identity access and role-based access controls and so forth. And we just need to be able to apply those over into the identity space around agents, making sure that we treat each one of those individually with the right identity practices. And the other piece, I guess, from a SecOps perspective, right, is what are all the things that it's doing underneath, right? We have great tools today that give us a human side, right? The ER platforms running on our machines. We have logs from an identity perspective. We have maybe some other user behavioral analysis type tools that are happening. And so we can pick those things up. But this year, between the identity piece and maybe getting more telemetry visibility into what the agents are doing and seeing when those things kind of start drifting off, we have like user behavioral analysis, right? Like you be doing that on a user, right? What's a normal behavior, right? Should this user be logging in at 2 o'clock in the morning? If you have a tool that can flag you with that, great. Well, what if that agent's starting to do something a little different, right, than what is typical? So
Right.
if we can get those same pieces that we're doing, so I guess what I'm saying is, right, we have these things for the users. The AI governance piece really isn't that much different when it comes to what they're going to be building this year. They're almost exactly parallel. It's just wrapped up a little differently.
I really like that because I've
Yeah.
kept thinking of AI as primarily tool first, but the idea of an ACL that includes certain agents on it now is right. Kind of, I hadn't thought of that for some of our viewers who might not be familiar. That's access control list, and it helps define who can access what capabilities from that system.
Yeah, treating an AI agent as a user. Yeah, I mean, that's that's exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah.
For the most part, when we're implementing these things that we are, I like to think that we are, and I like to think that organizations out there that are doing this are doing that. But you're right. Like there might be some access to information that they might have that a normal user wouldn't have, and then you brought up a good point with heuristics too, and tracking behavior of an agent because it's going to change, right? Because that's the point. AI learns and it retrains and it does something different. So how do we yeah, that's like gonna be a really difficult kind of issue because one of the big things that we see from AI folks, at least folks who, create models and who program it, is that sometimes they're even like, we don't know why it did that, right? Like we saw that with was it Facebook who had to turn off their AI because it made a language that nobody could understand, but its own AI. It was like very strange behavior that happened, and they're like, okay, we'll just shut it down. Like we don't know what's going on here. So like, what happens when that happens in a security context where you have this AI agent who's starting to do things a little differently? Why did it start to do that differently? Did it start to do it differently because it started to see a pattern someplace else and it was like, oh man, there's an attack happening over here? Or is it being attacked? Or is it like there's a lot of more questions that you have to ask? And it's not like a person where you can sit a person down and say, hey, what happened
Hey,
here?
why'd you
Or
do
what's going
that?
on here? Yeah. You have to go in and like take a look. And then again, sometimes even the programmers don't really know what's going on. So like they're going to be sitting there scratching their heads and be like, we don't know why it did this, which is amazing. I watched a YouTube video recently on man, what was it? It was AI agents and the reward system with AI agents and how like an AI agent like GPT will sometimes straight out lie to you because it depends on the reward system that it has on the back end, where it's like, no, 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 I need to get to the answer quicker rather than more correct. So it'll just lie to you straight out and then be like, well, I lied because I got to the reward part here, which is like just an amazing thing because I have a 3-year-old daughter very similar to that, right? So it kind of is like in its infancy, it's interesting, but to treat it as a human within a network, I think it's spot on. But at the same time, also understanding that it's not human, and also we also don't really truly understand what might be going on in the back end, even the people who programmed it, which is kind of scary.
Completely. Or where is it getting this little bit of information?